So I'm going to show you how you do these very common painting techniques. I have a cool color, a warm color, and white. The brushes that I'm using, I have a couple of soft bristled brushes and also a dry, kind of not very good brush. We're going to use that later. The first thing that you want to do with glaze, and please don't mind my terrible manicure right now. For glaze, we need to have a bottom layer that is dry. So I'm just going to pick up my lighter color of yellow, and I'm just going to plop down a little spot of color. Nothing crazy, just throw down a little bit of color. We're going to come back to this later. We're just going to let it dry for a few minutes. The next thing we're going to do is blending. This is very, very common in any painting. So what you're doing is you're trying to create a smooth transition between colors. So I'm going to smooth back and forth with my yellow. I'm going to pick up a little bit of my blue. You do not need to wipe your brush off in between this. You can with water, you can clean it, but you don't have to. I was actually surprised. This is new paint, a different brand that I haven't used before. So the blue is a little bit more overpowering than what I'm used to. But with acrylic, it's great because you can always go back and layer back on top. So again, I have not washed my brush yet at all. I'm going to go back with the yellow and try to smooth that down a little bit more. You can see the green starting to come out between colors. If you use complementary colors like yellow and purple or red and green, then that in-between color is going to be more of that muddy brown. All right, the wash. So I'm going to show you, this is the cup that I use when I paint at my house to try to save paper cups. I'm just going to clean my brush and get a lot of water. Without wiping off the water, I'm going to pick up a little bit of paint. And then I dipped it back into the water. So the wash is almost like you're using watercolor. Again, I was surprised at how dark this blue was, so your wash should typically be a little bit lighter than this. But you can always go back and you can dab it with a paper towel or Kleenex to lighten up any dark spots. So washes are really good for backgrounds. All right, another technique that uses a lot of water is obviously wet on wet. So minus my splashing there, I'm going to clean my brush off. I'm going to get some clean water, mostly clean. And I'm just going to make a little pile of water. Be careful if you don't have watercolor paper because it will soak through your sketchbook. I have multimedia paper, so it doesn't soak through very much. Then you just pick up color, dip it back in the water, and drop it into your little puddle, and it kind of does its own thing. It's really neat. You don't have to do dots. You can move it around. You can do lines. You can do waves. I'm just showing you with a couple different colors how that looks. So you can see it kind of dried kind of quickly. I was surprised. Didn't get to swish it around. Okay, impasto is awesome. This is a technique that Van Gogh used most often. It uses a lot of paint, but it's very cool for texture. So I'm going to use the white here because it's very opaque and very thick. So I'm going to scoop up, like I'm icing a cupcake, I'm going to scoop up a huge piece of paint. And then I'm going to get a little bit of a second color as well. And then again, if you've never iced in a cupcake, you basically just kind of plop down the icing and just kind of dollop it on there. You don't want it to be totally flat. You want it to have texture raising from the surface of your paper. It's almost kind of marbled. And then dry brush is exactly what it sounds like. I'm going to get my rough brush that I have. No water at all. And this creates an awesome texture. It could be used for hair, it could be used for fur, it could be used for tree barks, all sorts of things. You can cross hatch it if you want to. You can use different colors dry brushing. But that's a really fun technique for texture. All right, so lastly is the glaze. It's still a little bit damp, so glazing works a lot better when it's totally dry on that base layer, but this will be okay. So I'm getting a blue, and I'm going to water it down a little bit because you don't want to totally cover up the yellow. So you can see, because I added a little bit of water, it's transparent. and you can see the yellow coming out from underneath the blue. I'm not totally eliminating the yellow in that area. So this is really good if you're trying to do shadows, and there you go.